Hey, today we're going through my camera bag for 2024, as well as why I left Fujifilm and why it might be interesting for you guys to do as well. So let's get into it. So the bag itself is a 1530 Pelican case. It's just the carry-on travel-sized one. Honestly, with today's mirrorless cameras, it's plenty big for even multiple bodies and multiple lenses. I often use the low pro airport traveler bag that I quite like. It's got better wheels than this one. I just wanted something to change it up. So I just recycled a bag that I was using for something else. Now it just feels like fresh equipment. But I also did get fresh equipment. So very first, that means there's room for a big flash like this, even in my camera bag. So let's just put this guy on the C-stand right behind me here. There we go. Now let's go through these camera things and go over real quickly why I left Fujifilm. A lot of you guys know I've been complaining on multiple videos about how much I dislike my experience with Fujifilm. And it's not to say that your experience can't be any different. I know a lot of you guys really enjoy your equipment, and that's totally fine. I just have to think of it from a working business point of view, and I just don't want to show up on set with a camera that I'm not sure will allow me to get the job done. I obviously didn't bring this Fuji camera with me for the shoot. It's the one that's filming us right now. It's just there as a placeholder, but I did get two of the identical same cameras, which are the new Canon R8. Boom. Now, I know what you're thinking. You might be saying,
Sergio, if full frame doesn't make a difference, why did you go from crop sensor to full frame? Why tell us that it doesn't make a difference if you're gonna do the opposite?
Well, I didn't get this camera because it was full frame. I got this camera because it allows me to access Canon's range of lenses much more easily than if I was using adapters from different camera bodies. Yeah, I know, I can get an adapter and use Canon glass on my Fuji equipment, which is a route I could have gone, but I think it's just way easier when you're using native stuff with native cameras. Now, the main reason for Canon glass and specifically was so that I can use their tilt shift lenses, which we'll get into that in a bit. But for now, what I'm really liking about this camera and why I got two of them identically, I have a lot of clients nowadays that are just asking for additional video that comes with the photos. And it's just part of the market. So now I just have two identical cameras, one that can stay as a stills, one that can stay as a video camera, and they can just both operate identically. Same sensor, same everything. It just makes it a little bit easier. Full disclosure, it is my first time in my 12-year career, 10-year career. I incorporated in 2014, started shooting in 2012. So that's, I guess it's gonna be 10 years this year. So happy birthday to me. It is my very first time getting two identical camera bodies. So don't feel the need that you have to do this as well if you want to take your career seriously. I was looking at the R5, R5C, which would have been a $10,000 combo of two cameras. But again, I just looked at this from a business point of view, and I thought of two R8s being about $1,800 each, $3,600 versus two cameras that are like $4,500 each. That's a saving of $6,000, $7,000. So I think for that $6,000, $7,000 grand, that camera's not gonna make me any more money than what these ones will. I'm not saying that that camera, the R5 and the R5C, or that, you know, other cameras aren't better than these R8s, but I don't think they're gonna make me any more money comparative to how much more they cost. So these fit my budget. I was able to buy two of them for relatively cheap, and that's kind of why I switched. Now, another reason I switched from Fujifilm is I'm just riding the wave of all this hype. It's insane how much these cameras are holding their value, and I was able to get rid of the XH1. I was able to get rid of 2 or 3 lenses, and I was able to pay for 2 brand new camera bodies, as well as a slew of lenses that I'll dive into in a bit. I think it was just a good business move to switch back over to Canon because they just have a huge line of legacy lenses that very easily match with these newer bodies. Just kind of lowers the overall price of your equipment. Let's say you have 10 grand to spend. It's not to say that you're not gonna spend that 10 grand anyway. It's just, where do you want to allocate that money? And I thought 2 brand new camera bodies that are gonna last me for a couple years, as well as the access to a bunch of old vintage lenses that are on Marketplace everywhere, or they're on eBay, very easy to find, well, then it's just easier to go this route. Fujifilm is great. I'm not saying that I can't get it done with Fuji. It's just my overall workflow, especially here on this tiny little island, was hindered because I was shooting with Fuji. Access to support, access to used lenses, it's just a lot more niche than Canon. So unfortunately, going back with like the big brand, popular, normal name stuff is kind of the way to go for me moving forward. Next up that we got in here, well here, let's bring it out, right? So placeholder, X-Pro 3 for the camera that we're holding. And I guess the other placeholder will be, I'll use the 80 macro, which is for the 24-105 that I just picked up. That lens, specifically the one that's filming us right now, and I picked this lens up for 350 Canadian dollars. So I was weighing the options of this 24-105 versus the 24-70 that is very popular, and I just thought that the extra range of this one is much better than the extra stop of light that I was getting from the other one. I shoot everything at f8 and below, except for these videos pretty much, so it doesn't really bother me that these videos are at 4 or at 2.8. All my work, all my business stuff, it's all shot really deep depth of field. I want everything in focus as much as possible. I like to shoot with a lot of flashes, so it doesn't really bother to me how sharp a lens is wide open. Yeah, I know the 2.8 version is sharper at f4 than this one is, but once you're at 7.1, f8, 9, it's all the same. So I was really happy with this pickup. It's just a very versatile lens. It's boring, doesn't do anything special, but it also does everything great. I needed this lens for video, as well as a little bit of photo and my architecture stuff. It's kind of like a placeholder that's gonna get me there until I have the extra funds for the 24 tilt shift, which is the next logical upgrade for my architecture stuff, which I've been shooting a lot of. Now, if you guys don't shoot architecture or if you guys don't shoot advertising, the two very specific niches of tilt shift lenses, maybe you don't need Canon. I know Nikon makes them as well, and the Fuji GFX system has a few tilt shift lenses as well. But these ones are just so accessible. Next up, another video pickup I wanted, just a very simple 50mm. The Canon stuff, especially the glass, is just so much cheaper than Fuji stuff, even though it's pretty much the same physics. You know, a 70-200 is a 50-140, a 50 is a 33, it's the same physics, more or less. Of course, the sensor is a little bit smaller on the Fuji stuff, so the image circle gets to be a little bit smaller, maybe the glass gets to be a tiny bit smaller. But for the most part, it's only much more expensive because of the availability. You can turn around your Fuji stuff for at least how much you bought it for, if not more, because of the hype that's around it, and you're gonna get identical, if not higher quality glass if you switch to another system that's just more readily available, which is what I did. So again, this 50, not a tilt shift. I will like the 50 tilt shift. So depending on my budget, I might upgrade this to the 50 or the 40 tilt shift, the newer one or the older one, 45 I think it is. But this is gonna get me there until then, and it allows me to shoot video. So that's kind of the thing. With tilt shift lenses, they're all manual focus, they're all very slow. I think I paid 200 bucks for this. So you get like a super cheap, very usable lens until I get to upgrade, or not even necessarily upgrade, but just get an additional lens in my camera system. I feel like with the Fuji stuff, you don't have as much access to a variety of 50mm lenses. You know what I mean? Like you have the one and maybe the cheaper version, and that's about it. So at least with Canon, you get a multitude of options that do a multitude of different things. And that availability just drives the price down and helps us be more productive. A lot of my decision making, guys, just comes from being a business, not being a hobbyist. If I was a hobbyist, maybe I would have gotten the R5. Maybe I'd get all the brand new tilt shift lenses. If I had a regular job and I spent all my money in photography, then yeah, sure, maybe that's the route I would do. But I have to think of all these decisions like, all right, well, am I gonna make more money with this or am I gonna make more money with this? I'm gonna spend all this money into photography equipment anyway, but what do I get out of spending it all on one item or spending it on 3, 4, 5, 6 items? That's my train of thought. Next and final lens that I picked up for my new Canon switch has been this guy. So if you've been following along on my Instagram lately, you've definitely seen some behind the scenes videos of this guy. It's the 90mm tilt shift from Canon. And I believe in last week's video, I went over the new versus used, or maybe that's next week's video. I don't know, I forget, but you'll see. Essentially, this is an old lens. This lens is about as old as I am, still optically fantastic, beautiful lens. I love that about Canon, where you can choose to get something newer and it will be different, but they also have a very wide selection of much older, much more affordable equipment that still allows you to get the job done. One thing of the newer 90 versus the older one is the ability to independently switch the shift and the tilt, so they can either be at 90 degrees like these are here, or you can switch them to 180, or you can switch them to 45. You can independently rotate the two. Whereas here they're kind of locked, at this point they're locked at 90. I can undo some screws and put them at 180, but for the most part, it's not really, like you can't change that while mid-shooting, you know what I mean? It's not that this older glass does the exact same thing as the newer one. The newer one does have more tilt and shift range, so it does allow you to do a little bit more, but it's not like this doesn't get the story done for me. The extra $3,000 in my pocket literally paid for the 2 cameras that I'm shooting this on. There's always a way to reappropriate your funds and to get what you need in order to get the job done. The 105 technically is my most zoomed in lens right now. Then there's the 90 that I've kind of replaced my macro with, 50 for a quick autofocus, And then I've got, again, that same 24 to 105, but my 24 for the wide shot. So that kind of covers the majority of the type of shots that I need to do. Sure, I don't have a 70 to 200 right now, but there's a million of them on Marketplace that I can go pick up for dirt cheap. So whenever the need for a certain lens, it's very easy to go pick up with Canon stuff because there's just a million other options. That just drives the price down, makes everything a little bit more accessible, and just allows you to create. If you're looking at this from a utilitarian business point of view, then those decisions they're very important. That's what makes the difference on your bottom line. So real quick, let's just go through the top since we're here. I've got, as always, I am nothing without a tether cable. So one of the reasons I chose the R8s and not going back to like a DSLR, realistically, the R8 doesn't have any different image sensory? Realistically, the R8 doesn't have a different looking image than my 5DSR's sensor did. There we go. Even though it's a smaller resolution, I think if you put the images side by side, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. So why did I choose the newer, more expensive version? Honestly, because it's got a USB-C and it's got a much faster processor. So yeah, sure, that's maybe a minor difference and maybe a splurge on my part, but I'm able to shoot tethered, and as soon as I click the shutter, it's pretty much in. The processor offloading the image as well as the speed of the cable just makes my life a little bit easier. I use this 100% of the time while I'm shooting. Every shot takes half a second less. Well, that's eventually years off my life. So I've got my trigger. I've got a couple color charts. Always need a couple color charts. Always important. We got some filters, ND filters, and circular polarizers for the video stuff. You guys don't really care about that shit. Anyway, that's what I'm bringing for 2024. If you guys are still shooting Fuji, tell me why. Tell me what body you're still working on. I know a lot of you guys are watching me because of my Fuji equipment stuff, so sorry to see you go if you are going to. Otherwise, thanks for sticking around for the video. I've got a whole bunch of shoots planned for early 2024 with this new equipment, and I'm really excited to show you guys what it is, some of the biggest shoots in my career, and yeah, I'm just excited to take you guys along with them. So hopefully these help me tell the story a little bit better, and I'll see you guys next week. Later.